My mother's bet made me her daughter. I never imagined a single, flippant wager could detonate my entire life, least of all one proposed over Sunday mimosas by the very woman who gave me that life. My name is Leo Vance. At 22, I was a ghost haunting my own past, a fresh art school graduate with a portfolio full of promise, sleeping in the same childhood bedroom where I'd once taped posters of rock bands to the walls. The official story was that I was saving up for a shoebox apartment in the city, biding my time until a graphic design job materialized. The reality was I was adrift, marooned in the suffocating comfort of the suburbs, 3 bedrooms, a manicured lawn, and my mother, Diane. A woman who wielded reality TV logic like a weapon and believed any emotional crisis could be solved with a new haircut and a bottle of expensive Chardonnay. To the world, I was a simple equation. Laid-back Leo. Quiet. A connoisseur of video games and solitude. And somehow, miraculously, the boyfriend of Sloane Hayes. Sloane was a comet, brilliant, sharp-tongued, and fiercely alive. I, on the other hand, was a locked room. Behind that door were secrets I couldn't even whisper to myself in the dark, let alone to her. The biggest one resided in a forgotten hatbox at the back of my closet, beneath a tangle of old canvases, labeled sentimental junk. It began in whispers years ago, a quiet curiosity I couldn't pin down. But when I was truly alone, the house silent and empty, I would find my way to that box. Slipping into one of my mother's old silk blouses, the fabric cool and liquid against my skin, or pulling on a forgotten skirt that swished around my legs, a profound, terrifying calm would wash over me. It wasn't a sexual thrill. It wasn't rebellion. It was the unsettling feeling of a key finally sliding into a lock I never knew existed. It felt like coming home. So I buried it. I shoved the feelings, the clothes, the entire spectral person who wore them, deep into the darkness. It was a phase, I told myself. A secret Sloane never needed to know. Until last Sunday. I was nursing my coffee at the kitchen table, scrolling half-heartedly through job listings that all felt like different shades of beige, when Diane swept in. She was a vision in yoga pants and self-satisfaction, sipping from her CEO of this household mug and eyeing me with the clinical precision of a scientist studying a particularly fascinating specimen. "You have a beautiful face, you know," she announced, the statement landing in the quiet room like a dropped plate. I blinked. Thanks, Mom. I'm serious." She circled the table, her gaze analytical. "It's the bone structure. The symmetrical lines, that soft jaw. The brows are perfect. If I had your canvas to work with in the 90s, I'd have been a legend." I managed a tight, awkward laugh. Glad to know I missed my calling as a supermodel. She didn't laugh back. She placed her mug on the table with a definitive thud, the sound echoing the sudden gravity in the room. "I bet," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "that if I gave you a full, professional makeover, hair, makeup, the works, no one on this earth would ever guess you were a man." The coffee in my mouth turned to ash. "Okay, that's incredibly random and a little weird." "Is it?" Her smirk was razor sharp. "I'm serious, Leo. You'd make a breathtaking daughter." I nearly choked. "Why would you even think that?" She leaned in, her perfume a cloud of gardenias and strategy. "Because I notice things. I'm your mother. I see the way your eyes linger a little too long on the silk blouses when you help with the laundry. I know that my Chanel No. 5 lipstick went missing for a month last year, only to mysteriously reappear in the wrong drawer, slightly smudged. I see you." The heat that flooded my face was so intense I felt dizzy. She saw me. "Relax," she purred, sensing my panic. "I'm not judging. I'm proposing a little experiment. A bet." She leaned back, the picture of casual confidence. "I win our next game of Scrabble. You give me one afternoon. Head to toe. My canvas, my rules. No complaints." My mind was a maelstrom. Was this a trap? An intervention? A bizarre game of dress-up? But beneath the fear, a tiny, treacherous spark of curiosity flickered. And besides, I was the undisputed Scrabble champion of the Vance household. I hadn't lost to her since I was 12. And if I win? I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. Then I drop it. Forever. I'll never mention the lipstick, the laundry, or any of it ever again. My lips are sealed. The offer was too tempting. The odds were stacked in my favor. It was a calculated risk. Fine, I said, the word feeling like a door slamming shut behind me. You're on. You can guess how that went. She laid down EFFERVSCNT across a triple word score. A perfect, devastatingly brilliant move. She hadn't just won, she'd annihilated me. I was trapped. That night, staring at my reflection, the reality of it crashed down. This wasn't just a game for my mother's amusement. A part of me, a part one had ruthlessly suppressed, yearned for this. My most guarded secret wasn't just about to be exposed. It was about to be curated, styled, and celebrated. And that terrified me more than anything. I hadn't told Sloane. It wasn't about trust. It was about stakes. She was the best thing in my life, a vibrant splash of color in my monochrome existence. What if she saw this part of me and recoiled? What if the girl I loved saw the girl inside me and walked away? The clock was ticking. In less than 24 hours, I was going to let my mother turn me into her stylish daughter. And I wasn't ready for the heels, the wig, or the very real possibility that I might finally meet myself in the mirror and not want to look away. Monday afternoon arrived with the grim finality of a death sentence. I stood outside Diane's bedroom door, my feet bare against the cool hallway floor, my palms slick with sweat. 1,000 excuses swirled in my head. I could feign a sudden illness. Invent an emergency phone call from a prospective employer. Lie and say Sloane was making a surprise visit. But my feet were lead. The door swung open before my knuckles could even graze the wood. There you are, Diane grinned, her energy electric. She tugged me inside with the cheerful force of someone strapping you into a roller coaster you never agreed to ride. Nervous? No, I lied, my voice a croak. She chuckled, a low, knowing sound. You should be. Her room was her command center, smelling faintly of expensive perfume and ambition. Her vanity wasn't a table, it was an altar. Palettes, brushes, and tubes of lipstick were arranged with military precision. And laid out on the bed, like a sacred offering, was the ensemble. A wrap dress in the palest shade of cornflower blue. A pair of delicate nude heels. A matching, subtly padded bra and panty set. And, God help me, a long chestnut brown wig, its soft curls cascading over the pillow. This feels theatrical, I managed, not daring to move closer. She arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Honey, if we're going to do this, we're doing it right. There are no half measures in this house. Sit. I obeyed, sinking into the plush vanity chair. I'd braced myself for jokes, for teasing, but she was silent, her focus absolute. She tilted my chin, her touch surprisingly gentle as she began to work. Incredible skin, she murmured, more to herself than to me. You don't have to be afraid of this, you know. I'm not afraid. She met my gaze in the mirror, her eyes holding mine. You are. But you're also curious. Let the curiosity win. As her hands moved with practiced ease, foundation, a soft contour, a sweep of blush, something inside me began to unclench. The ritual of it, the quiet, focused attention, was strangely soothing. You've done this before, haven't you? She asked, her voice low. I froze. Not with me, she clarified quickly. But you're not flinching. You're holding perfectly still. Most men would be squirming out of their skin by now. I hesitated, then gave a nod so small it was barely a movement. A few times. When I was alone, a knowing smile touched her lips, devoid of judgment, full of a strange, fierce pride. Thank you for trusting me with this. The words struck me with the force of a physical blow. A lump formed in my throat, hot and tight. No one had ever thanked me for this part of myself. She finished with a whisper-thin line of black eyeliner and a muted mauve lipstick that transformed my mouth into something softer, more delicate. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the person in the mirror was a beautiful, startling stranger. It wasn't just makeup, it was an unveiling. The blush had carved out cheekbones I didn't know I possessed. The lipstick made my mouth seem vulnerable, feminine. Not bad for a first draft, Diane beamed. Now let's get you dressed. The dress was a second skin, the silk cool and unfamiliar, hugging my body in a way that made me hyper-aware of every line and curve. She helped me adjust the bra, tucking and smoothing until the silhouette was seamless. Then came the wig. The moment the soft curls framed my face, a final, crucial piece clicked into place. I turned to the full-length mirror and my breath hitched. A girl looked back at me. Shy, beautiful, and trembling with a nervous energy that was entirely my own. She was me. What do you think? Diane asked softly from behind me. I don't know, I whispered, unable to tear my eyes away. I was too busy trying not to weep with a terrifying mix of relief and fear. She had me practice walking in the heels, her coaching a mix of drill sergeant and pageant mom. It's all in the hips, sweetie. Lengthen your stride. I rolled my eyes, but a secret part of me soaked up every word. Then, she reached for her phone. Wait, I said, instinctively stepping back. No photos. Nothing permanent. She lowered the phone, her expression shifting to one of understanding. But then the doorbell rang, a cheerful, two-tone chime that sounded like a siren. I froze solid. What if it's Sloane? I told her I was busy, but what if she just showed up? Relax, Diane said, striding to the window. She peeked through the blinds and a smirk played on her lips. Nope. It's just Carol from next door. My stomach dropped into my shoes. Carol wasn't just a neighbor. She was the neighborhood's central intelligence agency and, to make matters infinitely worse, Sloane's older cousin. No, I whispered, making a frantic dash for the stairs. She cannot see me. But it was too late. I could hear the front door opening. Carol, what a surprise. Just returning your casserole dish, Carol's chipper voice floated up the stairwell. Smelled amazing, by the way. Hope I'm not interrupting anything. I flattened myself against the upstairs hallway wall, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Is someone else here? Carol asked, her voice laced with insatiable curiosity. I could have sworn I heard heels. There was a pregnant pause. I held my breath. Oh, that's just my daughter, Diane said, her tone as breezy as a summer afternoon. She's visiting from out of town. My world tilted on its axis. Daughter? Your daughter? I didn't know you had a daughter. I wouldn't lie to you about this, Leo. Maybe Riley isn't a costume. Maybe she's the part of you that's finally learned how to breathe. Just as a fragile sense of hope began to bloom in my chest, the front door opened and Diane walked in. Her smile faltered as she took in the scene, me, fully transformed, holding hands with my girlfriend. Oh, was all she said. Sloane started to get up. I should go. No, Diane said, her voice surprisingly firm. Please, stay. She set down her shopping bags, her gaze taking in every detail. Well, this is sooner than I expected. She looked from me to Sloane and back again. Then, a dangerous glint appeared in her eye. If you're both on board now, I have an idea. A way to take this out of the shadows. I felt a new wave of dread. Mom, no. Hear me out. The annual community charity fashion walk is this weekend. It's a small-time local thing, but it's public. A runway. Absolutely not, I said, my heart pounding. But Sloane's eyebrow was raised. Wait, are you seriously suggesting she walks in it? She wouldn't be Leo hiding in my bedroom, Diane said, her voice fervent. She would be Riley. Styled, confident, and seen by everyone. One walk down that runway. That's insane, I gasped, standing up. This was supposed to be private. What happens if I don't do it? I finally asked, my jaw tight. Her voice was soft, but the ultimatum was clear as glass. Then the bet ends. We put the clothes away. We go back to the way things were. Back to the locked room. Back to the ghost. I looked down at myself, at the dress, the heels, the girl I was only just beginning to know. Could I really put her back in that box, maybe forever? That night, Sloane sat on my bed as I meticulously redid my makeup, not for practice, but for strength. Are you really going to do it? She asked softly. I met her gaze in the mirror, my reflection looking back at me with a resolve I didn't know I had. I think if I don't, I said, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough. She smiled, a slow, brilliant smile that lit up her whole face. Then let's make sure they never forget you. The day of the fashion walk was a surreal dream. Diane had procured a new dress, a stunning sheath of pale lilac with delicate off-the-shoulder sleeves. Sloane, my unexpected anchor, did my makeup with the focus of a Renaissance painter. Ready, sweetheart? Diane asked, the endearment sounding natural, earned. At the chaotic community center, I gave my name at the sign-in table. Riley, I stammered. Riley Vance. Backstage was a whirlwind of hairspray and nervous energy. I felt like an alien. Just before I lined up, my phone buzzed. A text from my father, Frank. Dad, Diane told me what you're doing. This mockery ends tonight. We are talking when you get home. The words were a punch to the gut. He knew. He was waiting. But then the DJ's voice boomed. And now, give it up for our final model. Riley Vance. I stepped into the light. For a moment, the world fell away. It was just me and the runway. I walked, my hips swaying with a confidence I didn't know I possessed. I felt powerful. Then, from the crowd, a man's jeering voice. Hey, isn't that Leo Vance? A ripple of cruel laughter. The flash of a phone camera. My courage faltered. My eyes scanned the audience, and then I saw him. In the third row, his face a mask of stone-cold fury, was my father. I stopped dead. The lights were blinding, the dress a cage. I was going to break. But then I saw them, just off stage. Sloane, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing a challenge. Don't you dare stop. And next to her, Diane, who simply nodded once, her expression fierce and proud. Own it. I took a breath. And I walked. Each step was a deliberate act of defiance. I walked for Riley. As I turned at the end of the runway, I didn't hear a roar, but I heard a slow, steady clap. And then another. A woman in the front row smiled. Someone shouted, "Go, Riley." Tears blurred my vision, but I kept walking, head held high. The drive home was a silent, tense procession. Frank's truck was in the driveway. He was in the living room, arms crossed, the air crackling with his rage. "What the hell is this?" he exploded. "Making a spectacle of yourself of this family?" "It's not a spectacle," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "Don't lie to me, Ryan." "It's Riley," I corrected him, the name a shield. "And I'm not ashamed." "You're an embarrassment," he roared. "You want to talk about embarrassment?" I shot back, the words pouring out of me, hot and sharp. "Do you know what it's like to feel like an imposter in your own life? To look in the mirror every single day and see a stranger? I didn't choose this. But it is who I am. And you don't get to erase me." He stared, his anger momentarily extinguished by my raw honesty. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door, slamming it behind him. I collapsed onto the couch, the fight draining out of me. Diane knelt beside me. "I am so proud of you, Riley," she whispered. 3 days of suffocating silence followed. Then, a sharp knock. It was my Aunt Cheryl, my dad's sister, with my uncle and grandmother as her grim-faced entourage. "We saw the video," she announced, bypassing my mother and fixing me with a withering glare. "Your father is humiliated. He said he's lost his son." "Then maybe he never deserved one," Diane snapped. Just then, the front door opened again. It was my father. Everyone turned. He looked exhausted. Cheryl, he said, his voice quiet but heavy with authority. Leave. She was speechless. Frank, leave, he repeated, his gaze unwavering. This is my house. My family. His eyes finally met mine. My child. He walked towards me, his steps heavy. I don't understand this, he admitted, his voice raw. But I watched that damn video 20 times. And all I could see was someone braver than I have ever been. I was scared, he confessed. But that's my problem to fix, not yours. I don't know what happens now. But maybe we start by talking. He reached out his hand, a fragile truce offered in the tense room. As I moved to take it, my phone, forgotten on the coffee table, lit up. A message from an unknown number. Unknown. I saw you on the runway, Riley. A lot of people did. You think your father is your biggest problem? You have no idea what's coming.